These are the guys with disastrous week 10s that we need to be looking forward and seeing if they're going to get better in the future. Now, our first guy, Aaron Jones, I thought we were out of the woods. I mean, I thought Aaron Jones back in week 9 showed us, yeah, he's fully healthy, right? The first week all season, he plays over 50% of the snaps since he was injured. He goes out there and he has pretty much 100 total yards. He gets you the rushing touchdown. He gets you 6 targets out of this backfield. And I was just operating under the assumption, okay, I guess Aaron Jones is now going to be a must-start running back going forward. I think that was a bad assumption on my part. I think that I overlooked key details, one of them being the game script that we had against the Los Angeles Rams. Remember, this was a Rams team with no Matthew Stafford. This was a Rams team that was simply unable to move the ball down the field. So while Aaron Jones did see about 55% of the snaps in this backfield, in a game environment like that, yeah, that led to 24 touches in this contest. However, that's probably not the situation for the Green Bay Packers going forward, right? The situation for the Green Bay Packers going forward is this is a team that's most likely going to continue to lose games. Now, it's kind of rooting for Jordan Love coming into the season, but it's turned out that Jordan Love really isn't any good. And we get to see what Aaron Jones in this workload looks like in a game where they trail essentially the entire time. They lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers 23-19. Aaron Jones still plays over 50% of the snaps. Aaron Jones plays 38 out of 68 snaps. This is about a similar rate to what we saw 2 weeks ago against the Los Angeles Rams. But in a worse game environment, he's only getting 13 carries. He's not getting the rushing touchdown. Now, one thing that will save Aaron Jones and make him kind of like an older Ramondre Stevenson is that you do have him still getting targeted out of the backfield. You have Aaron Jones with 6 targets this week, turning that into 4 receptions for 19 receiving yards. So I think we just have to reset our baseline expectations with Aaron Jones. I think this situation is strikingly similar to Ramondre in that this is a running back that will be sharing the backfield. He's sharing with A.J. Dillon in this instance, Ramondre with Ezekiel Elliott. This is a running back that's in a very bad offense. I will say the Packers probably better than the Patriots, right? We can at least say that. But he's getting saved essentially by the receiving volume in a full PPR format. He's an inefficient running back at this point of his career in a bad offense, but you still start him every single week anyway because of his involvement as a receiver. We just can't be expecting him to be in a running back 1, and instead we have to be more so expecting a mid to low end RB2 performance. Now going over to the other guy in this game that was very disappointing, Deontay Johnson goes out there and gets you 1 reception for 17 receiving yards. Now, my issue with Deontay when we called him the sell high guy wasn't that we thought he was going to have a rock bottom floor, right? No, I thought that Deontay Johnson was going to go out there and he was going to give you a pretty high floor, that he was going to get consistently draw about 10-ish targets per game. At least that's what we've seen with Deontay Johnson through his NFL career. I just thought the offense was really bad, but no, Deontay Johnson has 4 targets and 1 reception in this game. The volume's low. Obviously, we know the efficiency is going to be rock bottom here as well. I mean, if you're looking at what we've had so far this season with Kenny Pickett, you would not believe the amount of passing touchdowns that Kenny Pickett has. Like, it's laughable. He has 6 passing touchdowns on the year. Let me count, make sure that I'm counting this correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 6 passing touchdowns through 9 games played. This will be one of the worst passing offenses in the NFL. This is a team that is spreading out the ball. You have the running backs both getting involved as receivers. You have Kenny Pickett still looking towards George Pickens. You possibly have Pat Freiermuth coming back soon. So Deontay Johnson is a wide receiver that's historically been inefficient. And now he's in one of the worst offenses in the NFL. At least passing offenses, that is. And at the same time, the volume is not guaranteed. So instead of Deontay being a locked and loaded wide receiver 2, I think you probably have to reset your expectations for him to be a high-end wide receiver 3. I mean, Kenny Pickett has had 1 game in his NFL career with more than 1 passing touchdown. 1 game. Now let's go over to Derrick Henry. In the case of Derrick Henry, really bad game, right? You have 24 rushing yards. You have -4 receiving yards. So Derrick Henry totals you 20 total yards in this game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It was a brutal matchup against Tampa. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, just the worst game environment you're ever going to find for Derrick Henry. To be completely honest with you, even though this game was this hideous, even though Tyjae Spears does see 38 snaps in comparison to Derrick Henry at 27, am I going to be changing my mind regarding Derrick Henry? Probably not. This is still the same guy that he was beforehand, right? And that in games where the Tennessee Titans offense implodes, which will be very often. I mean, we've seen this consistently. You go back week 1, they lose. They only score 15 points, 63 rushing yards. The game against the Browns, you only score 3 points. Derrick Henry, 20 rushing yards. Against the Colts, 16 points, 43 rushing yards. Against the Ravens, 16 points, 97 rushing yards. Against the Steelers, 75 rushing yards, 16 points. And then Tampa, 24 rushing yards with 6 points scored. If you're looking at the games where this team can win, yes, Derrick Henry is going to have that workload, and Tyjae Spears will not be the running back in the second half. But still, this has kind of been the story all year. You're going to have a couple of these random implosions from this Tennessee Titans offense, in which Derrick Henry will just be horrendous. Now, it will be interesting if you are looking at Derrick Henry and trying to draw a comp of where his value is going forward. I mean, if we're going to go through and pull up flogfantasy.com, just get a baseline level with the community rankings. As it stands today, Derrick Henry is RB19, right alongside Aaron Jones, Kyren Williams. And this is how y'all are valuing these players. This isn't how I am. So it's very interesting to see that Derrick Henry has fallen this low. I think it's probably an appropriate price. And going down, you can actually see that James Cook, a running back, playing tonight is at RB27 currently, right in front of Najee Jerome Ford. With James Cook, interested to see what we're going to have if Leonard Fournette plays. If Fournette plays, going to be going with the fewer than 78.5 total yards for James Cook in the game tonight. If Fournette doesn't, I think you can honestly assume that James Cook smashes. But if you wanted to check out that pick'em on Underdog Fantasy, you can find that link in the description, find it in the comment section. Promo code FLOCK, 100% deposit match, plus our rest of season fantasy football rankings and tiers, and a Josh Allen special pick on more than less than half a total yards. So make sure you take advantage. Now let's go over to a triplet of teammates over here. We'll go with the trifecta. Starting off with Travis Etienne in Jacksonville. Etienne, 9 carries, 35 rushing yards. The first game this season with single-digit carries. The first game this season where he gives you literally nothing in fantasy. Now, am I concerned about Travis Etienne going forward? No, I am not. Well, maybe you want to point out the snap rates. You would go, well, Mason, come on, man. This is the lowest snap count the Travis Etienne's played all year. Come on, are you not worried about, what about the snap? Come on, this wasn't a game. They lose 34-3. Do you really want Travis Etienne out there in the fourth quarter just risking injury for no reason? No, we don't. The Jags get boat raced. There's no reason for them to have him out here. Now, going over to another skill positional guy in this offense, very much worried with Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley gets you 3 targets, 2 receptions, 20 receiving yards. Ridley was already just borderline playable as is, where you are probably wanting to bench him if you could. And now that we can say it is very safe to go through and just call Calvin Ridley a must bench player every single week. In the case of Lawrence, I am unsure. Because while Trevor Lawrence and the Jags have been good so far this season, and while of course this was just the worst matchup you could ever ask for going up against a 49ers defense that literally just added in Chase Young, Trevor Lawrence has 185 passing yards, 2 interceptions, 0 touchdowns. He's been great all year, but from a fantasy football perspective, he just simply has not. Like, while from a real life perspective, the Jags are winning games, Lawrence has 9 passing touchdowns to 6 interceptions this year. Lawrence is out there with 2,100 passing yards and I believe like 9 games played. So, I mean, let me just get out the simple calculator here. Because if you're looking at the passing volume, it is significantly lower than you were expecting. 235 passing yards per game. He could save himself if he was going to run the football a little bit more. He showed some rushing upside earlier in the season. Really, that's no longer there. So Lawrence going forward in games where they win, they're running the ball. And games where they get blown out, it's not like Lawrence is Sam Howell giving us a bunch of garbage time points. So I think Lawrence has to be viewed as a QB2 in fantasy football. Of course, real life, still a good player. It was just a really tough matchup. But in fantasy, this is a continued trend of him not producing. Now, sticking with quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson is someone that I drafted so much of. Lamar Jackson is the player I spent more money on in fantasy drafts this year than anybody else. And the reason for that was rushing upside, rushing upside, rushing upside. I thought we were getting a discount because he had been injured recently. Wasn't too concerned about that this year. Thought the offense would be pretty damn good. And the offense is good and he's not producing. This is what I'm pissed about. Because it seems like everything's working. Lamar has stayed healthy. Lamar's running the hell out of the football. He's 481 rushing yards. By far and away, the number one QB in rushing yardage total so far this season. And yes, the Ravens are scoring a ton of points. If you look at what we've had over the past month, 38, 31, 37, 31 points. This offense is at the very top of the NFL. But what we've also seen over the past month is that once this team gets in the red zone, they're willing to just give the ball away. They're willing to just give it to the running backs. I am hoping that this is just a small sample occurrence. I'm hoping this is just kind of football randomness. I'm hoping that Lamar decides to start running it a little bit more at the goal line. But until we see that, Lamar Jackson has not been the guy that we've drafted him to be, even in an offense that's dropping 30 points every single week. I'm still going to rank Lamar as a must-start player every single week. I'm hoping that he's able to turn it around. This is really just me letting out my frustrations on y'all. Now, we're going to be super brief with our next guy. Hollywood Brown, maybe you should be concerned, right? I know a lot of people are going to say, well, Mason, Kyler Murray comes in. Kyler Murray just force feeds Trey McBride. I'm fine with it. I mean, honestly, if you are looking at Hollywood here, he has 81 targets on the season. Still think that this is a player that has talent. I mean, Hollywood and Kyler were just a foot off of actually scoring a big play touchdown this week. And I just want to reiterate that Kyler Murray is not a bad addition for Hollywood Brown. It is a great addition for Hollywood. And that if you're going to go through and look at the 8 games that we've seen over the past 2 seasons with Kyler Murray in this offense for Hollywood Brown, he's out there averaging about 70 receiving yards per game and 10 targets per game. Now, in the 13 games with no Kyler Murray, Hollywood Brown falls down to about 44 receiving yards per game and 8 targets per game. So even though this week was bad with Kyler Murray's first week back in, do not panic. Hollywood Brown's going to be just fine. I wonder if y'all have already panicked with the community rankings on flogfantasy.com and dropped him down. Let me see where he is right now. The time of this recording, he currently is sitting at wide receiver 26. I wonder how much he falls based off this one game. I would say Tank Dell definitely jumping over him. That's for damn sure. Now going over to someone that I want to be brief with. Saquon Barkley is a running back that I drafted a ton of this year, and I never would have done it if I knew the Giants were going to collapse like this. Now, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this was the player we had as a sell-high guy last week, given the complete and utter offensive collapse that we have here in this offense. And I want to reiterate, if you can get out of New York, you should. While Barkley is 100% this entire offense, this is still the worst offense in the NFL, and it's not even remotely close. If we go over and look at Washington, who's trading away their key defensive players and tanking this season. Washington is a 10-point favorite over New York this week. Yeah. So, no, this was not just because they go up against the Dallas Cowboys, and obviously the Cowboys have one of the better defenses in the NFL. No. This is an issue with the Giants. It's going to be this case all year. If they are double-digit dogs against a division rival that's tanking, I think you can say that at this point of the year, the Giants are probably the worst offense in the NFL. Probably worse than the Panthers. Now, going over to the other running back in this game, Tony Pollard was someone I didn't draft at all, but I thought he was a good buy low candidate a few weeks back. A few weeks back, we were looking at Pollard going, oh my gosh, he's averaging 15 targets per game. He's averaging 5 targets per game. It's a very good offense. Offense should be great going forward. I mean, if I see this type of workload, I'm going to try to go buy low on that running back. And yeah, it looks like Pollard just simply is not getting it done, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, one thing that's very interesting is Dowdle actually scores here. I mean, this Cowboys offense scores 49 points. You score 49 points. You run the ball extremely well. So your assumption is, oh, okay, well, I guess that means Tony Pollard smashes. I mean, I had him ranked as if he was going to do great. And no, Pollard has 55 rushing yards, 15 carries, and most disappointingly, he has 0 targets out of this backfield. Now, I saw a lot of people going out there and saying, oh, Rico Dowdle stealing the touchdown, blah, blah, blah. Rico Dowdle scored that touchdown with 2 minutes left in the game. It was 42-10 at that point. All the starters were out. Cooper Rush was in. Like, please don't be worried that Tony Pollard is not scoring the touchdown when they've already benched all their starters. My main concern that I have with Tony Pollard here is this a running back that is no longer going to be involved as a receiver? He's had 6 targets over the past 3 weeks, which is a significant fall off compared to what we saw earlier this season. And if he doesn't begin to see more target volume out of this backfield, I think that Pollard does have to fall down to being, I mean, what? I don't want to overreact here, but a low-end RB2 in fantasy? Like the last okay week that we've had from Tony Pollard was against the Chargers, where he gave you the 110 total yards, but the man just simply cannot score a touchdown to save his life. Now, I think that's all we have for you in this video. If you enjoyed it, please go down there, hit that like, subscribe, play fantasy football. And if you wanted to check out any of those pick'ems for tonight on Underdog, you can find that link in the comment section, find it in the description. If Fournette plays, I'm going to be looking at James Cook for fewer than 78.5 total yards. If Fournette doesn't, honestly, you can go more than great matchup against Denver. But yeah, also, promo good flock, 100% a positive match, our rest of season rankings. And, ladies and gentlemen, a Josh Allen special pick of more than less than half a total yard. But I think that's all I have for you. Again, thank you so much for everything. Really do appreciate you. And I will be live streaming after the game tonight, and it will be our 200th day in a row of live streaming. So I hope I get to see you there.